Hi everyone, Adam from Friendship Tree. Super excited today to share a special guest on our show, Zoë Black, the co-founder and CEO of Happy Paws. Zoë and I have been friends now for about a year. One of the most amazing humans I've ever met. Her empathy, her attention to detail, and her love for what she does is absolutely amazing, and it's inspired all of us at Friendship Tree. So a big welcome to Zoë Black.
Thank you so much for having me and for that beautiful welcome. I feel warm in my heart already.
Obviously, you and I have, got to know each other really well. We know, being in partnership with you, we know a lot about Happy Paws. I think the audience would love to hear from you. What does Happy Paws do? How do they do it? And what's the impact? Yeah,
thank you. I mean, we have been operating now for 10 years, but we still consider ourselves a growing and scaling social enterprise. As you have probably gathered, we do have a little bit to do with animals. And I started the organisation because I saw this challenge for both people and animals, and that was a challenge of isolating circumstances. So we support people experiencing social isolation. We connect them in with rescue animals and other animals that need support and training so that they can have a journey together of change. And so it's a little bit different to what people would expect. We're not matching people to an animal or sending them home with a pet or a service dog or anything of that nature. It's really about connecting them in with a group of people. They train animals at rescue centres like RSPCA Queensland and some of our other partners across the country. And that journey with other people is really purposeful. They learn new skills, they make friends, and that can just be that turning point for someone to then take that bigger, bolder path in their life that might have been closed off to them prior.
How do you carry out those activities? Is there lots of staff involved and lots of trainers?
Lots of staff and volunteers across the country. So we say we're from the top to tail of Australia, so from Darwin all the way down to Hobart, which has just been, bigger than I could have ever dreamt initially. So staff and trainers leading sessions, and then the participants that are engaged in the programs are giving incredible care to animals in need, really empathetic, really skilled. They come really committed to learn and to provide for animals who really need them.
Tell us a little bit about the impact. Like how do your recipients feel? Oh, and also how are the animals? Like obviously I've been out to your beautiful site at Waco and we've cuddled puppies and all sorts of other animals. So it's with you guys, it's not just about the person, it's about the animals as well. So tell us a little bit about both, how they feel.
Yeah, it is a mutually beneficial bond. I mean, the human-animal bond has always been thus. The people come, I would say, initially out of an isolating circumstance to, meet with the animals, and that can be the draw card. Animals, of course, bring a lot of joy and humour into our life, but they also are a natural connecting point. So I guess that kind of takes away some of those barriers that people might be experiencing about, I'm not sure about engaging in a new social group. With an animal there, they know what they're going to be talking about, and then they've got the safety of a guided session from our trainers to kind of facilitate their learning and facilitate that social connection. So if you can imagine a training room where a group of people who don't know each other come together, it can feel a bit, tight and tense. And, seeing our sessions come together, as soon as an animal comes into that room, imagine a dog kind of bounding in because it's happy to get out of its shelter pen. You almost feel the air exhale out of the people. Wow. They're talking, they're connecting, and that builds week on week as they grow in confidence and just actually really the animals show them real time that they are learning, that they are contributing, that they are making a difference. And for many of our participants who receive a lot of care, they might receive psychological care, they might receive support from care workers and the like, the opportunity to give of oneself and really feel like they have a meaningful purpose in this world is just an incredible platform to then actually deliver on amazing social outcomes for both those people and the animals.
Yeah, and I know that you do a lot with the RSPCA. Who else, what other sort of animal shelters are you working with?
Yeah, I mean, it has been a wild and wonderful world of discovering all these different types of organisations that work around animals. So our first and major partner was RSPCA Queensland. They really engaged and really provided us that safe space for my entrepreneurial and impactful spirit. We also work with RSPCA in Darwin. We work with a Hunter Valley rescue shelter called Happy Paws. We work with a cat-only shelter in Hobart called 10 Lives. We work with Dogs Homes of Tasmania, who are dog-specific. So we've got a cat-specific and a dog-specific. And then we've recently launched a partnership with Assistance Dogs Australia because it was not within my means to say no to 200-odd Labradors that need training to go on to, veterans with PTSD and people with disabilities who need the trained assistance dog. So our participants will contribute to, their socialisation and all the work that can go behind, making these incredible service dogs for the community.
Wow.
So it's very diverse. It's very fun. I see farm sanctuaries as part of my, work days sometimes. I see, other animal rescue organisations. And so, for a girl who grew up in country New South Wales surrounded by animals, I absolutely get my cup filled in this job.
Yeah, fantastic. And, from myself and some of the team visiting your site, it's an energy, it's a frequency when people are there, not just because they're getting paid. I'm talking about your beautiful staff. And it's just really important for the audience to know that, it's such a different set of kind of, I guess, constraints in the non-for-profit sector that so many people are giving more than they should to make other people's and animals' lives better. And when I was out there, I actually feel the vibe. It actually makes me a little bit teary, to be honest, when you see it all firsthand. And I know you and I have spoken about that before, and I think there's something about that just kind of brings life back to the real necessities and how much good we can actually do. So, I guess to help the audience understand, can you give us a little bit of a backstory about, what you did before and what was the real catalyst for you, to start this amazing 10-year journey that is now kind of right across Australia?
Yeah, well, I'm probably a mixed breed myself in that regard. I've had an interesting kind of career journey to end up where I am. I never thought that I would be a founder running my own organisation. That wasn't in the original plan. I actually started my career wanting to be paid to travel, and I worked on construction sites here in Australia and overseas. I also, did work in the not-for-profit space when I realised that I needed to take my career back towards a space that was more values aligned. And so I really wanted to understand how not-for-profits operated. And I really wanted to give back to organisations that helped me in a personal space, which we can talk about a little bit. But it was that blend, I guess, of a commercial mind and a social heart that after doing a really amazing piece of work around deaf and hard of hearing and speech impaired communities and seeing more people experiencing social isolation firsthand, and also spending time at RSPCA Queensland as a volunteer and a foster carer, that got my brain sort of churning and thinking, I'm seeing these two problems, from my weekday to my weekends, I'm seeing amazing people being left behind. And that was sort of the seed that was growing. And really, it took a lot of courage. I'll give myself that kind of feedback, I guess, to my, self 10 years ago, to take that step forward and leave a executive position in another not-for-profit and decide, I'm going to start something from scratch, and I'm just going to see if it takes hold and see if I can grow it. And it was a big, bold decision at the time, and I'm so grateful, that I decided to back myself and believed in this vision and believed that some of my previous experiences, while they were hard, could be turned into, beautiful things that you just spoke to. Going to the sessions across the country, they still make me teary too. It absolutely still just, brings goosebumps to my skin to see people connecting and giving so well to the animals in need. That's just something that is beyond a dream for me, but also incredibly healing.
I know once I'd spent some time out there at your Wacol site, that night I went home and spoke to my wife, and I didn't, I'm not someone who cries very often, and I've got a massive heart, which is obviously why we've started Friendship Tree, and our whole sole purpose is to support beautiful non-for-profits like Happy Paws Happy Hearts. But I found myself telling Kristen what I'd seen and what I'd witnessed, and I just broke out. Like, I started to cry, and then she cried, and I was like, wow, like, when things are real and when it's really meaningful, when emotion comes from nowhere and you feel your eyes well up. And it was actually a really nice moment to share, and it just made me feel like that that we're all on the right path, trying to give more back to people and planet. So, and I guess another thing that I know that you are really dealing with front on is loneliness, in Australia, but probably all over the world. But let's just focus here where you're helping. People tend to think of loneliness of someone estranged from their family or, isolated. And yes, that can be the case. But a lot of us can also feel lonely within a group of people or even within our own family. And that is, that's really daunting for a lot of people. So can you just kind of expand on that and just, how you guys are working, obviously, to bring the people and the animals together, but what you see, like what are the kind of metrics around that you see in Australia?
Yeah, I mean, it's everyone kind of has their preloaded assumptions in life, right? And, we do kind of think of the stereotypical lonely person. I have to say our experience is very much that it can happen at any age across any part of our community. And you said it so well, you can be in a room with a group of people that you might have been specially matched to be in that room with and still feel like you're not getting the connection, the true connection that you need. And that's a story we hear a lot from our participants. Something that surprised me very, very early on was that we started initially trying to address social isolation in the obvious space with older Australians. And we brought in groups from aged care organisations and in-walk young people who were living in those aged care organisations. And we know that's still a challenge we need to address in Australia. But those young people, they were not getting the social connection that they were desiring. And once they came into an environment that was joyful and happy and where they were contributing, they really pushed us to develop programs that could be there for the long haul and see them grow and change. So that's just one example of, how very quickly in the very first day, in the very first session, you could see this stark difference between young and old about, where loneliness sits.
Yep.
The World Health Organization is naming it as a really important and a health issue that absolutely needs to be addressed. And I think we, all of us sort of experienced it in COVID, but I think we'll see more to come about how important social connection is for all of us. And we often talk about how we might have ambitions for different individuals to get to work, but sometimes we need to return people to life before we return them to work. And returning to life does mean, as a human being, connecting with others, giving of yourself and feeling that confidence as you learn and feeling confident to walk into a new room and connect with others. And so that's what I think is really, really important in what we do, in that we can actually facilitate that in a really delightful and engaging way. There's also stories of young people who get a diagnosis late in life, and that really strikes me. I see a lot of young women, for example, that get diagnosed after school, with neurodiversity, and suddenly it kind of tweaks to them. Oh, I understand now why I felt that social disconnection at school. But in the meantime, they've also lost confidence in their ability to learn and grow. And so we're part of that journey with them. And thankfully, with the role that the animals play, you can imagine a young person that has maybe made it through school or not made it through school and they've lost their confidence and love of learning. It doesn't matter how much I say to that young person, you can do it, you're great, you've got this, away you go, because that self-talk is still existing within them. But when a dog is there that doesn't know how to sit and doesn't know how to lie down yet, and they successfully train that dog how to do that, that's a different experience, right? That dog is not there just to please them. That dog is there to learn and grow and, connect with people again. And so that reinforces for that young person, oh, hey, I actually can learn things. Yep. So it's almost like this stealth way of going about creating these really important outcomes. And, we see it each and every day in the work that we do, that loneliness it's a tough challenge, and it's not, it's not something that's not going to exist in our society. I think we'll see more of it as things change and people feel displaced.
Yeah. And I think the connection, animals are very honest in their approach. When you look at an animal in the eye, if it's happy to see you, it's genuine. And I think, if people haven't experienced genuine love and happiness and that little bit of joy that animals and that connection, and also with other people participating in your program that are all sort of feeling the same, I think it's a beautiful thing. And I know for me personally, animals have always been such a huge part of my life. And a lot of times I've gone as far as saying that, sometimes I prefer a room full of animals than lots of noisy people. But yeah, I guess, and I experienced that firsthand being out there with you guys. And so it's just amazing. So you guys are really making that connection and empowering, you're joining what an animal with a human, and then seeing the repercussions and the positivity that comes out. And as you said, then that starts to a more positive outlook on life, allows them to think about themselves differently, about things might not feel so scary. Am I right? If they start to build that foundation. And I know, speaking with you over the last few weeks too, you really tell me about veterans and where Happy Paws Happy Hearts is moving.
Yeah, so we've long worked with veterans, and we now work with their families in partnership with RSL Queensland, and we are seeing the need to really advocate that veterans do have more access to programs that are, I guess, fitting in what we term return to life programs. The parts that the veterans kind of communicate to me is, as they leave service, it's a vacuum. And I think another thing that humans need is purpose, but you can imagine people who've had a life of service absolutely have signed on to a life of purpose. And when they are exiting, a lot communicate to me that it just feels like this vacuum and that they won't re-find that, because it was so much part of their identity. It was their community, it was their family kind of community as well. And where to from here? And will I ever find anything that engages in that side of myself? And so to run programs for veterans has been, really incredible to see their immediate connection with the purposeful work that sits around training animals. And they can really articulate the parallel journey that they're going on. I think of a veteran we worked with named Tom, and he said to me, these rescue dogs, they're just like me. They're trying to learn to retrust in humans, and they're trying to find their next thing, and they're trying to learn new skills that transition them into that, next life. And it still is one of the really early indicators to me that we needed to keep going on this path of supporting veterans, because the other thing Tom said to me is that his time, out of the home, training the animals made for a better family life for him.
Yeah.
And then he ended up fostering animals. He ended up volunteering at RSPCA Queensland. He ended up adopting animals. And then he ended up being, president of his local Lions Club. And so we returned someone, who had a real service mindset back out into the community to be giving in the community. And I think it's a real call to action for all of us to think about what we would lose if we don't engage people who have committed their lives to be of service.
Yeah.
And so I'm really passionate about opening that up and about making sure that, any veteran who feels that they need not just a service like ours, but any service that is about returning them to life before they kind of make that, next step, it's available to them, and understanding that that is, the right thing for us to do for people, and that we as a community will absolutely benefit from, putting that investment in.
Yeah. And as moving forward, what's some rough numbers on the people and animals you help, this year that you hope to, last year what you did? And I know you've got some really amazing figures that you're trying to push for 2032, I think it was.
That's right.
So can you share that with us, just so that people know how many lives that you guys are touching?
Yeah, thank you. So in weekly programs across the country, we typically see around 500 people attending those programs every week, which is just wild, because we started with, one group, and now we see over 500 people engaging in those long-term programs. And then we see a number of people coming to short-term programs throughout the year as well. We did some figures recently because we do have this big, hairy, audacious goal for 2032, which is to have supported 10,000 people from social isolation back to people, back to place, back to purpose. And we've just tipped over the 5,000 mark point.
Wow.
So it's wild. It's amazing.
Yep.
And, you know, when you set a big goal like 10,000, it's supposed to scare you, and it really did when we set that goal. But to know we're, you know, over the halfway mark now is really amazing. And our goal with expanding into Sydney, for example, is to build another large-scale campus so that we can, you know, really grow that reach and impact.
Fantastic. And I guess at those 10,000 people that you're aiming to reach for, and I spoke about this earlier with Sandy from Traction, who you know, it's the ripple effect. So those 10,000 people that now are feeling less isolated, less lonely, and able to, like, I guess, re-emerge back into their communities. Imagine how many people that they're now affecting, and how, you know, with positivity and the change that they've felt. So it's not just the direct, it's the indirect change that you're making through all those people that have been part of the program.
And long lasting, you know, you can imagine a mother who was, you know, being full-time carer for, you know, her young person with neurodiversity, and that, you know, young person, this is a real life story, you know, she thought was always going to be at home, you know, gaming in her home, and, you know, he finds his confidence, he finds his friends, he then starts traveling, he then finds a job, you know, in the animal space, and then he moves out of home, right? And so her life was like, whoa, actually, you know, what I thought my life was going down this path, now it's going down another path. So those ripple effects are absolutely real, and it's real for parents, and it's real for siblings, and it's real for partners, you know, in the case that I said before with Tom, and real for his children, and then real for those community groups that they then go back and engage in. And, you know, I find that people who've experienced significant trauma and have gone through a really big life challenge, if they work their way through that and find on the other side of that some positivity and hope, they're the first willing to go back through the fire to pull other people through what they went through and to share their experiences.
And who better to learn off than someone that's feeling or had felt the same way as you do? That's
where that empathy comes from, right?
And I think, unfortunately, the world is full of people telling people what they should do without the experience. And I think having that lived experience and then those people becoming the change that we all want to see is absolutely amazing. So how many sites do you have now, Zoe, in Australia?
Yeah, so we're at 10 locations across the country, which is amazing. Like I said, top to tail. So, you know, Darwin, Mackay, a couple of sites in Brisbane, Toowoomba. You're looking at these sites in Sydney. So we've already got one active, but building that bigger campus. Then the 2 sites in Tasmania and 1 in Hunter.
Right.
But there's probably a good 30 to 50 locations across the country that are, you know, working with animals that we would see as values aligned and can provide a really socially inclusive environment. So while I'm really excited to kind of at that 10-year mark hit that 10 location kind of goal, I can also see ahead of me a lot more, you know, opportunities, but also that challenge and kind of scaling across the nation.
And for people out there, obviously, I guess the first thing when I met you first time last year, and we all sat together, and you and I said, you know, it really felt like family. I guess like that sort of springs out, and how does that make you feel? Like now that you've created the Happy Paws Happy Hearts, like you've created a family that's just growing and growing, and you know all these other people that you can help. How do you feel personally? Because I think you're an absolute inspiration for other people out there starting or wanting to do something good, whether it's just community work, giving some money, some donation, perhaps some corporates, but also for people who have got a small charity. And, you know, it's a long journey. You've been going 10 plus years and already had experience previous to that. I guess what's some words to give people, sort of give them that extra vision and that extra push to say stick in there, because it's definitely worth it. But I think from the outside in, people can think maybe it's easier than it is, and it's actually a really long journey, and you have to be 100% committed to why you started it. Otherwise, you'd never finish it. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I also feel that it's a tension, right? Because the problems that need addressing are quite large, and there's so many of them. There's so many challenges. And so I encourage anyone, whether you're giving, of your wealth, or you're giving of your time, or you've decided to start something new, just know that, there are big challenges to address, so that we should all be called to action to focus on that. And one of the things that I did for myself in the very early days was I could see this, millions of people experiencing social isolation. Losing my voice already. So edit that. Fine. So one of the things that I did for myself in the very early days is to, I guess, give myself a counterpoint to that feeling of overwhelm of just how large the challenges I was trying to address were. Over 1 million people experiencing social isolation, tens of thousands of animals across the country in need of extra hands-on time, care and attention. That can be quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so I had to come back to just some core things that would help me feel that, my contributions were still worthy even on those really tough days. And so I said to myself, and I still say to my team 10 years on, if you see people laughing, if you still see people connecting, if you see people having a good time and learning new things, and you see an animal, having a break and having some joy, like that's all we were ever kind of starting out to be. The fact that it's gone on to do so many different things to create so many of those more longer term outcomes is absolutely amazing. But at the end of the day, just even that contribution itself of giving people a reprieve from an otherwise difficult week, and giving those animals a reprieve as they're kind of working through this transition through a shelter environment, for example, that's worthy, right? That's actually, that's enough.
Absolutely.
So just build from there and find that little sort of anchor point for yourself to remind yourself, if it's a really challenge up ahead, if it's your path, things will fall into place, but find that anchor for yourself so that you don't get overwhelmed by the challenge ahead of you.
And reflecting on the last 10 years, is there I know you've got thousands of people, is there a bit of a one that sticks in your mind about how someone was and how they've changed and what that outcome is that you could share? Because I know from the outside in, charities look like a flat landscape and things look really simple, but also it's really nice for everybody to hear about like really specific cases about that's not just a wide metric, it's actually this particular person. Do you have anyone in mind?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are so many, and I have the joy of, the organisation has impact daily. So you can go to any one of our locations like you did and see the impact in real time. But of course, I only really want to share a story that, I've been given permission to share.
Yes, of course.
But it is still a story that is so meaningful to me because it's a story of a young woman. So even though her experiences of feeling disconnected and isolated from her peers emerge from different causes to mine, I can really see her transformation and in a way feel like I was able to go back and change that trajectory in a way that would have helped me when I was a young woman. This young woman is an ambassador for Happy Paws Happy Hearts. Her name is Caitlin. She's written about her story as well, which I think is just so courageous. But she experienced a stroke and that at a young age, right, like in her early 20s, she had a stroke, and it wasn't caught in, as quickly a time as it should have been. And so that left her, with physical injuries that she had to recover from. And then, of course, she talks about this experience of feeling like her body had let her down, and that sort of separation from peers in a way, and the grief that came with that, of course. She and I also connect over our love of Taylor Swift. But one of the things that happened when she had her stroke and she woke up in sort of the recovery kind of phase is that she'd missed her out on being able to go to the Taylor Swift concert that she wanted to go to, but she was able to, ultimately get there. And coming to Happy Paws Happy Hearts, she just talks about how she was able to refine that confidence for herself, to, share her experiences with other young people. And that's what makes me so just have this big, warm, glowing heart for this young woman because, like I said before, she goes back in and she supports them and she's really growing and changing but giving at the same time. And she's found that young and she gave to the animals and, it's just a really beautiful story of progression and resilience. And I just remember this day when I was actually having a rough day myself, and I came across Caitlin in the cafe out at work, and I said, "How are you going?" And she said, "It's been a great day. I put in my earrings today. I've been working on that for over a year to get that dexterity back into her hands to put her own earrings in." And just like
it's one of those moments.
Yeah. Forever interested in her journey and so proud of everything she's done and what she still does for so many other young people.
Beautiful. And like, I know you as Zoë Black and a beautiful human, but tell me how this whole journey has changed you and what you've learned about yourself and, how it makes you feel now.
Yeah, it was actually a tough journey to take on because I'd had some of my own lived experiences of social isolation and how difficult it is to pull yourself through those events and to find that confidence in yourself again. And I found myself at this turning point because I had escaped life-threatening domestic violence, and what it took from me was this sort of trust and hope in good humans. That's what I grieved, beyond the sort of physical recovery that I went through and having a diagnosis of PTSD from those events. One thing that I really felt very deep grief about was I just don't have this sort of trust and hope in the world that I used to. It seems to have evaporated. And fortunately, I did, take the step to volunteer at the RSPCA Queensland at that time, just on a Saturday morning, just to feel some connection back to who I was as a young person, because I grew up in a family of wildlife carers and we used to adopt dogs. And so I just wanted to go back to that space that felt like home, even though I was separated from home. And the dogs immediately kind of just gave me that joy and that relief from the otherwise hard battles that were going through my mind and hard psych sessions I was working with to unpack what I'd been through. But the people in that environment really helped me believe that there are good people out there working on tough challenges and pulling together. And so it gave me that line of sight and that confidence that I could, trust and still find this hopeful heart in me. So Happy Paws Happy Hearts, well, it has happy in the name.
Yes.
It was actually a really challenging journey and something I knew would be difficult to take on, and I knew I would hear, stories that echoed mine that were, of course, different but had similarities. And what has been, I guess, delightful, surprising, beautiful is that on those really hard days where I have sort of echoing kind of memories of some of the events I've been through, there's always another moment in that day that proves to me that it's always been a journey of healing. And so, hearing back from someone like Tom who says his relationships have changed for the better, that can just shake me back to my core and say, yeah, this was worth it. Absolutely worth it to go on that personal growth journey, to take that courageous step, because, it's reinforced this beautiful experience for myself to know that instead of taking out that difficult life experience on other people, I chose to, try to change things.
Yeah, and it really embodies for me, there's a saying, be the change that you want to see. If I close my eyes and I think of you, Zoe, I think of you are actually the embodiment of that thing. So you've not just changed yourself, you're changing the environment around you and the people that come close. So be the change you want to see in the world that's how I think of you. And it takes a lot of courage, and it's a long, long road. For us, we've started the Friendship Tree platform to be really supportive. It's been, even for us to go live, it's been a 6-year journey that you helped celebrate with us last October. So it's been an amazing journey, but, I think I'm just so overwhelmed, I guess, now spending most of my time in the non-for-profit, being surrounded by beautiful people that care, that are empathetic, and they're there to really help people, planet, and animals. And it's just a really beautiful experience. And you are probably, as I got back into the non-for-profit sort of landscape, you were one of the first people that I really connected with. So I want to say that you're an inspiration, not just to me, but for the whole Friendship Tree team. And I know from knowing a lot of your staff, a massive support and a massive inspiration for all your team. So I guess, for anybody out there that's, looking to really get in touch or be involved with someone and an organization that is really genuine, I ask everyone to reach out to, Happy Paws Happy Hearts. And you can also check them out on the Friendship Tree platforms. But yeah, Zoe, it's just, I guess it's been a hell of a journey, and I just want to be very thankful that you've popped in here today, which is, this is the start of our series, and really what we're trying to unearth with these shows is really friendly conversations from two friends like you and I, just trying to put a little a light bulb on the landscape of charities giving, what goes on behind, and really a bit of a backstory, the I guess the under canopy of why do people start organisations like this, which is, I guess a lot of people would think, and that usually it's triggered by either trauma or it's triggered by something that's been in their psyche for a long time, and you've just got to make that decision to make things different and better, and starting with yourself. So just want to say a massive thanks. Is there anything else that you'd like to add today? Because I know you've got, you and I could talk for hours, but is there anything specific that you think that our audience, listeners, both from other charities and from donors and corporates, that, anything else from Happy Paws that you'd like to say?
Yeah, I mean, well, firstly, thank you so much for providing me with your thoughts and your experiences with me, because I really engaged with you and your team too. So it means a lot to have that reflected back to me, that you've enjoyed it, that you've found it inspiring. That means so much. So thank you. What I would like, I guess, to sort of the listeners and supporters to know is actually that the participants that are coming to our programs are having the most incredible impact. Like, that is probably the key thing that I want to have us all kind of rethink, if you like. Because if we think about people experiencing trauma and challenges and needing to disconnect and only think about that from the point of a burden that we have to change in society, and don't think about the opportunity, we're going to miss things. And to know that our participants have given tens of thousands of hours in animal care time and training, like just last quarter in just Queensland, almost 250,000 hours.
Wow.
Like, that's absolutely phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
And they are giving it in an empathetic, patient way, because they understand, what that animal needs at that time. If a dog needs to come out into a session and all that dog wants to do is sleep because it's been, too stressed in the kennel, then they're there for that. They get that, and they'll provide that. And so, what I really want to kind of encourage for everyone to know is just that impact and that kind of reframing of how we think about how we're going to support in our community is, it has this absolutely incredible result for all of us.
So look, thank you so much for today. And I just want to say to everybody, please reach out to Happy Paws Happy Hearts. Let's all, think about our hearts and our empathy and our compassion, and, as a country, let's continue to give and really give to those people that are doing all the good work on the ground. So Zoe, been a pleasure. Look forward to seeing you back out at one of your sites very soon. Thanks.
Always there with animal cuddles for you.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.